The NASCAR Pro Invitational iRacing Series has an exciting new home this Sunday, and will Jimmie Johnson still retire at the end of 2020? Not even Jimmie himself seems to know the answer at this point. We have a lot to discuss on today's episode. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric, and welcome to Out of the Groove. We do have a few things to discuss today. I'm gonna go and start with the iRacing news right off the bat. So yesterday I did a video where we talked about the huge success that was this past weekend's Pro Invitational debut at virtual Homestead Miami Speedway. Saw over 903 estimated viewers on Fox Sports 1, which meant it was the highest viewed esports event in television history. And we talked about how that number is actually very similar to what the Xfinity Series gets every single week. It's actually more than what the Truck Series gets, and it's also more than what IndyCar gets when they're on basic cable. Easy to say that last week's race was a pretty big success. Now in yesterday's video, they had not yet revealed what time the race this Sunday at Texas is going to be, or what channel, or where it was going to be broadcasted. They had not revealed any of that as of early yesterday, but shortly after I uploaded my video, NASCAR, Fox, made a pretty special announcement. This Sunday, NASCAR drivers will be racing on the virtual Texas Motor Speedway, and it will be broadcast live on Fox, Fox Sports 1, and the Fox Sports Go app at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. You heard me right, folks. The main Fox network will be broadcasting an iRacing event. In my video yesterday, I told you guys I think race 2, Texas will probably get a slight uptick in viewers from race 1 just because of how well race 1 at Homestead was received. But now just throw all that out the window. Yeah, race 2 at Texas is definitely gonna blow the TV ratings of race 1 at Homestead out of the water completely. Because this race is on the main Fox. The main Fox is a broadcast channel. In other words, you don't have to buy, cable to have access to it, which is why more people in this country have access to the main Fox, which is why anything that's shown on the main Fox network typically is gonna outweigh the audience of FS1 or anything on cable. If you look at the typical NASCAR Cup Series season, about half of the Fox races are on Fox and the other half or so are on FS1. The Fox races always beat the FS1 races in ratings. That's why they usually put the biggest races early in the season, and like Talladega and stuff, they always put those on the main Fox because they know those are very popular. The difference in viewership for a NASCAR Cup Series broadcast on cable versus a NASCAR Cup Series broadcast, like on Fox, is huge. The cable races usually get around half, maybe a little more than half the viewership the broadcast races get. Now, that's, there's couple things at play there. One, obviously more people get the main Fox. That obviously is gonna bring more viewers to the table. More people have access to it. But the only thing that maybe skews the data here is that, usually like the Daytona 500 or the big like Talladega races and stuff, those are usually the ones that are reserved for the main broadcast channel, races that are already more popular than the ones they put on cable, usually. But just looking at historical TV ratings data from the last couple of years, yeah, races on broadcast channels typically get close to double the average races on cable channels. So keep that in mind. We had 903,000 viewers estimated watching on cable this last weekend. I expect upwards of 1 million for sure. Could we double it? Could we get to 2 million viewers this coming Sunday for an esports iRacing event? Only time will tell. Obviously, I wish we were racing real race cars around the real racetrack. That would be more entertaining. That'd be more fun. That'd give me more to talk about. But it is cool that so many have kind of rallied behind this esports, this iRacing thing, because it's entertaining. No, it's not the same as real race cars on a real racetrack, but Fox NASCAR last weekend didn't try to bill it as such. They definitely tried to highlight the similarities because there are some important similarities between the simulator and the real racetrack, but nobody's trying to act like this replaces real racing. Fox didn't try to do that, NASCAR didn't try to do that last weekend. It's still a competition, and that's what makes it entertaining to watch, because you still have the biggest names NASCAR has to offer competing. In a day and age here where the entire world is on pause and pretty much no other major sport is competing or doing anything like this right now. So motorsports are. Motorsports are the only ones doing this. I've seen Formula 1, IndyCar's trying some stuff as well. So motorsports are the only ones really that I've noticed, the only high profile sports that are carrying on in any meaningful capacity. The fact that NASCAR is going to be on Fox this weekend, it's just a simulator. So while no, it's not the same as real NASCAR, and I don't want anyone to think that I'm trying to say it is, I don't want this to replace real racing. Believe me, I'm not saying that. It is still entertaining and it is still competitive. We saw it last week. A lot of the drivers took it pretty seriously. They had fun with it, but they still took it seriously. They wanted to win. So this is a great thing for NASCAR, and it's only going to introduce more fans who maybe knew what NASCAR was but weren't particularly interested. There's nothing else to watch right now. This is going to get people's eyes on NASCAR. People who never really considered watching NASCAR, they're now going to be tuning in and are at least going to be seeing it and paying attention to it. And this is what I love about this, is NASCAR has always kind of had the reputation of being too behind with the times. They're not innovative the way, Formula One is. The engineering in Formula One is half the selling point over there. Or Formula E. Formula E is not super popular, but it's got a lot of investment rolling its way because it's electric, and that's the future. That's innovative. NASCAR relies very heavily on its roots. And I know people say that, oh, NASCAR's changed so much in recent years. It has. It's still very heavily dependent on its roots. Sometimes that's for the better, but sometimes I do think that is for the worst. I mean, the race cars we're supposed to get next year, which who knows if that's still happening, but the next gen car is a huge technological improvement over the cars we have now. The cars we have now, that NASCAR, the Cup Series runs now, are so antiquated. Drivers know it, team mode, everyone knows it. Other people in other motorsports know that these NASCAR race cars are practically dinosaurs compared to other major motorsports. So NASCAR has had a reputation, I feel like, over the years, a public perception at least, that they're behind with the times. They need to get with the future, get with the modern day. Here they are being one of the earliest adopters of esports in a major way, and it's working for them. So I do appreciate this. NASCAR is being innovative this week, and that is getting them new numbers and new fans for sure. So I'm excited to watch this race this weekend. Main Fox and FS1, it's taking over the whole Fox network. That's crazy. A regular Cup race doesn't even do that. Obviously, they're just desperate for programming, but still, this is gonna be huge. This is gonna be fun. So I'll be watching. Hope you guys are too. Now, before I talk about Jimmie Johnson here in just a moment, I want to briefly discuss another bit of news that came out yesterday. Jenna Fryer from the Associated Press was first to report on it that I saw. She tweeted that NASCAR has ordered pay cuts across the entire company during the racing stoppage. NASCAR officers will see a 25% reduction in salary, 20% everyone else. Budget expenses have been frozen. Employees urged to use vacation days. Announced to employees via email from President Steve Phelps. Phelps wrote in the pay reduction memo, "These decisions are difficult but necessary for the health of our company as we work through this crisis and address the long-term business needs of our sport. We will have to adjust our operations in several significant ways. We are trying to minimize expenses until we can get back to doing what we do best, holding great race events for our fans." Obviously, this is a result of just the nature of the world right now. Business across the entire planet has largely stopped, or at the very least slowed down significantly in wake of the virus and this whole outbreak, the pandemic we're in the center of. So this is not surprising at all. Also worth mentioning there that NASCAR now also owns ISC, so that's a large group of racetracks that I know track presidents are also getting a pay cut in line with this email, in line with this new policy change. My initial reaction to this is not to overreact. Obviously it's not good, but this is pretty much in line with every other major business and even small businesses. In fact, it's worse for a lot of small businesses in the country right now. This is pretty much in line with what everyone's having to deal with right now. Many industries are not bringing in money, or at the very least not bringing in the amount of money they're used to bringing in this time of year because the economy is on pause, more or less. And because there's still no hard deadline for this, we still don't entirely know how long this is gonna last. That level of uncertainty has caused many businesses to lay off workers, like to just not pay people entirely. Budget cuts across the board, salaries being slashed. This is not an exclusive to NASCAR problem. This is not a NASCAR issue here. This is a nationwide and mostly worldwide issue right now. I don't mean to diminish this at all. And remember guys, this doesn't include race teams. Race teams are completely separate from NASCAR. This 20%, 25% decrease does not apply to the drivers, the team owners, crew chiefs, anyone who works for the teams. They're all handling their finances individually. This has only to do with NASCAR corporate and the people who work, I guess now also for ISC, all those racetracks. I'm not gonna sit here and try to talk about the entire economy, what I think is best for the world or anything. There's still way more questions than answers out there right now. Unprecedented circumstances are gonna lead to unprecedented actions being taken, not just by the government, not just by individuals, but by companies and pretty much everyone in between. These are unprecedented times in a lot of ways. So expect things like this to happen. So I'm not shocked by this. I'm not like overly concerned by this, but it is unfortunate. It is obviously, we know across all of NASCAR, race teams have laid people off because they don't have the same money coming in that NASCAR corporate does. It's unfortunate, but it's not entirely surprising given the current economic climate. That's all I'm gonna say. Those are the biggest words I've ever used. Anyway, I'll move on now to the last topic of today's video. I wanna talk about Jimmie Johnson. Jimmie Johnson, 7-time champion. I don't need to read off his stats. Do I need to read off his stats? 83-time winner. Yeah, it's been a couple years, but he's still really, really good. Anyway, Jimmie Johnson, of course, at the end of last year revealed that he would be retiring after the 2020 season. Now with the 2020 season kind of being all over the place, we've run 4 races and now we've missed a couple and are gonna miss at least a few more. The future of the 2020 season is definitely a concern at the moment. It's definitely in doubt to some extent. I mean, I'm convinced we'll probably get back to racing at some point, but still, this season's been kind of topsy-turvy. Some weird things could happen. So fans have been asking the question of Jimmie Johnson, are you still going to retire after this year? Especially if we end up canceling a decent number of races and we don't run a full season schedule. Will you retire still, or will you come back for 2021, try to make it a full season to wrap it up? Jimmie Johnson responded to one of these questions from a fan on Twitter. He said, "This seems to be a popular question from my fans, and the simple answer is, I have no clue We will all be smarter in the weeks to come. Stay healthy, everyone. A couple interesting things here. First, it's interesting that Jimmie Johnson would even take the time to respond to just a random guy on Twitter. And two, obviously, the more interesting thing is the fact that he does say, I don't know, which leaves the question. Maybe he will come back and race in 2021 and give it another year. How likely is that possibility? I don't know. I'd still say it's probably pretty unlikely, but it is a possibility. And a month ago, I don't think it was. I don't want to get Jimmie Johnson fans too excited here that, oh, he's coming back, he's gonna race another year. I don't want to overhype it or give anyone a false sense of hope. I'm just reading what the tweet says. I'm just reading the words that came out of Jimmie Johnson's mouth. Now, it's worth mentioning, Jimmie Johnson has never indicated that he is done racing completely. You know, even though he was planning to retire at the end of this season from NASCAR full-time, that never meant that he was done racing completely. I mean, he's tested a Formula One car in recent years. He's tested IndyCar stuff. He's been very interested in IndyCar and is very interested in running perhaps a road course race on the IndyCar circuit within the next couple of years. So Jimmie Johnson, to say that he has lost the passion for racing, that he just is done driving race cars for good, that was never on the table. That was never, it was something he explained. Yeah, maybe he's done with the grind of 38, 40 weeks a year, being on the road, racing, doing all that. Maybe he's done with that grind of things. So maybe we don't see Jimmie full-time ever again. But to act like he was done racing race cars entirely was never on the table. He is definitely still interested in driving race cars. So if this happens though, this would throw a whole wrench into silly season because that 48 car has been at the top of a lot of people's list of rides that a lot of people are vying for. We've heard a lot of names thrown around as top candidates for the 48 car. If Jimmie stayed, wow, that would really mess with a lot of people's plans, I'm sure. I don't know Jimmie Johnson personally. If I had to guess, and this is a 100% guess, I have the same information you all have, and I know as much or as little about Jimmie Johnson as pretty much every one of you watching. I don't think he comes back next year. I do think he will still retire at the end of the 2020 season, at least from full-time racing. You never know. You might see him in a couple one-off races here and there. NASCAR keeps acting like they're going to add new road courses or street courses. Jimmie likes road courses and street courses. Maybe we see Jimmie appear for one of those races in the coming years. But I don't see Jimmie Johnson completely flipping his plans. Now, if the entire 2020 season, like if something goes horribly wrong in the world and the entire season or the vast majority of the season ends up getting canceled, like straight up not run, which would, I don't see that happening. That would be unfathomably catastrophic. Then yes, I think he would come back and race in 2021, but I don't see that happening. I don't know that NASCAR is gonna get back on track by Martinsville. I don't know if that date, I mean, obviously that date is not cement. That's just what they're hoping for at this point. I don't know if that's gonna happen. It might go a couple more weeks. It could go longer than that. But I do believe at this point in time, we will race most of the NASCAR season. Yes, I think a lot of the races will be rescheduled. I don't think at this point NASCAR is gonna have to cancel many or any races this year. So I expect Jimmie to still end up running close to a 36 race schedule here in 2020. And I think if that happens, he is gonna retire at the end of the year. At that point, he's fulfilled his obligation. So that's why I think Jimmie is still gonna retire this year. But like I said, that doesn't mean I think he's gonna be gone from NASCAR entirely. I actually think Jimmie Johnson will race again in NASCAR beyond 2020. I just don't think it'll ever be full-time again. The new car is enticing. A lot of new tracks being thrown around are definitely going to be enough, I think, to entice a couple guys probably out of retirement. I wouldn't be shocked if Dale Earnhardt Jr. races a cup race again. I wouldn't be shocked if Jeff Gordon races a cup race again. I'd be a little surprised, actually. Let me put that there. I'd be a little surprised. But heck, Tony Stewart's coming out of retirement to race an Xfinity car this year. Anything can happen, guys. And Carl Edwards could wind up on someone's doorstep looking for a ride. Maybe that's a little too far. I don't know if I'll go that far. That would be extremely shocking. But my point is, I think with all the new changes in NASCAR coming over the next year or two, I think you will get some drivers like Jimmie Johnson, recently retired drivers, that will be interested in running a one-off here and there. So I don't expect that 2020 will be the last we see from Jimmie Johnson, but I do not think he will keep racing full-time after this year. But it's still very early. A lot of things can change in the world, in NASCAR. A lot of things can change between now and then, but it is very interesting seeing Jimmie Johnson tweet at a random fan that he's not sure right now what his plan beyond this year is. He could very well come back. Sponsorship is there. Relationship with Rick Hendrick is there. He seems to like Cliff Daniels. I mean, maybe Jimmie sticks around. Keep that in the back of your minds, guys. Jimmie is. Anyway, y'all, hope you enjoyed this video. That was fun. That's all I've got. Thank you all a ton for watching. Subscribe if you're new. We talk about NASCAR every week throughout the week. Even during this hiatus, we're not going anywhere. Follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram, and a big thank you to my Patreon supporters. The grooviest gang of race fans on the planet. Thank you all a ton for your support over there on Patreon. If you also want to help support the channel, if you like the way I talk about the sport or cover things, I'm hoping to get out to some more racetrack once this hiatus hopefully end soon. You can support me by checking out that top link down in the description. I greatly appreciate it. I've got some exciting things in the works over the next week or two. I have a few guests lined up to come on this show. Some names and faces you're definitely familiar with. Others you may not be familiar with, but I think we'll have very interesting stories or very interesting insight to give, to say the least. So keep an eye out for those in the next few days. I think you guys will be excited by some of the names, and I think you'll be very interested by some of the conversations we're gonna be having on this channel over the next week or two. So keep an eye out for that. Gotta fill this air somehow, man. We can't just sit here and talk about iRacing every single day. I mean, we could. I might finally have to buy a subscription and get a rig if that's the case. Anyway, y'all, thanks for watching this video. I will see you again very soon. Have a good one, y'all.